Today, we're going to talk about a group of absolutely extraordinary women from Kerala. In the early 20th century, they went up against one of the most rigid, most patriarchal societies in all of India. And their fight for dignity and freedom completely reshaped their world and left behind a legacy that, honestly, we're still grappling with today.
So let's start with this defiant cry. We're not going to give you any context, not yet. Just know that this one command, it captures the entire spirit of a revolution that didn't start on the streets, but from behind the high walls of their own homes. We will absolutely come back to the woman who said it.
Okay, so to really get what these women were fighting against, you have to understand the cage they were in. The society they were born into was built on this incredibly strict, caste-based system with just suffocating rules, especially for women in the highest castes.
Now check this out. This isn't from some ancient, dusty text. This is from an official government manual from 1911. And it just lays bare the brutal inequality that was baked right into the law. Think about that. For a serious crime, a man might lose his social standing. A woman? She could be sold into slavery. This was the world they inherited.
For women in the Namboothiri Brahmin community, the rules were the absolute most severe. We're talking confined to the inner rooms of the house, completely banned from any formal education, and often forced into polygamous marriages. And when they did go outside, they had to be totally hidden from view by these huge palm leaf umbrellas called Marakkudas. It was, quite literally, a life of invisibility.
But here's the amazing part. It was from inside this most restrictive community that the first sparks of rebellion really flew. And these weren't just protests. These were acts of incredible personal courage that challenged the very foundation of their entire world.
You know, their very name tells you everything. The word for a Namboothiri woman, Antharjanam, literally means the one who lives inside. It was their job description and their identity all in one. The women we're about to meet were the first to stand up and say, "No, we will no longer live inside."
And this didn't happen overnight. It was a wave of defiance that just kept building. It starts in 1931, when Parvathi Nenmenimangalam creates an organization just for these cloistered women. Then comes this hugely symbolic act, led by her and Arya Pallam, of publicly throwing away those umbrellas, those mobile prisons. By 1947, Arya Pallam is on a public stage defying a police ban, and the whole struggle is immortalized by Lalithambika Antharjanam in her incredible novel, Agnisakshi, which means witness by fire.
And this quote from Arya Pallam just shows you how deep their rebellion went. She wasn't just fighting against customs like the umbrella. No, she was going after the core symbols of patriarchal control, like the thali, that marriage necklace. She was questioning the entire idea that a woman's value is defined by her husband or her marital status. Just wow.
So at the same time that the Namboothiri women were breaking down the walls of their homes, their personal fight for freedom started to connect with a much, much bigger one, the struggle for India's independence from the British. Okay, picture this. The year is 1938. The cause is getting a responsible government in the princely state of Travancore. A massive protest march, led by a woman named Accamma Cherian, is headed right for the palace. You can just imagine the tension in the air.
And then the crowd is met by the British police chief. He sees these thousands of defiant protesters and he gives the unthinkable order: fire on them. For a terrifying moment, it looks like a massacre is about to happen.
But in that split second, Accamma Cherian strides right out in front of the crowd, faces down the guns, and she roars, "I am the leader. Shoot me first before you kill others." And her sheer audacity, her unbelievable courage, it just stunned the police chief. He took back the order. For this one act, Mahatma Gandhi himself would later give her the title, the Jhansi Rani of Travancore. And then you have the story of A.V. Kutimalu Amma, a major leader in the civil disobedience movement. She gets arrested in 1932. But here's the detail that makes her story so powerful. She was holding her 2-month-old baby. And she wasn't deterred for a second. She took her infant with her to prison, serving her entire sentence. Her sacrifice just became this potent symbol of how dedicated the movement was.
So the fight wasn't just political, right? It was also about breaking into professional and civic spaces that had always been exclusively for men. This next group of women were absolute pioneers, smashing ceilings in law, in government, and in community leadership.
Just look at the career of Anna Chandi. It's like a ladder of firsts, and each rung is higher than the last. She wasn't just the first female law graduate in Kerala. She then becomes the first female judge in all of India.
And then, in 1959, she becomes the first female High Court judge in the entire British Commonwealth. I mean, she fundamentally changed who was allowed to wield legal authority.
And in the world of governance, you see these parallel breakthroughs from completely different ends of the social ladder. You have Thottakaru Madhavi Amma, who became the first woman nominated to a legislative council in Cochin. And at the same time, Dakshayani Valayudan was achieving something even more historic. She wasn't just India's first Dalit woman graduate, she was the only Dalit woman in the assembly that literally wrote India's constitution.
And what's so important to get here is that Dakshayani Valayudan wasn't just a token presence. She was a powerful intellectual force. At a time when a lot of leaders wanted separate political protections for Dalits, she argued forcefully for full, total integration. She was shaping one of the biggest debates of the brand new Indian nation.
So, what is the legacy of these trailblazers? Well, they absolutely broke down countless barriers. But they also kicked off a revolution that is, in so many ways, still unfolding today.
This number right here, this is a direct result of their fight. Today, 33% of seats in Kerala's local governments are reserved for women. That's a historic recognition of women as a political force in their own right, and it creates a space in public life that these pioneers could only have dreamed of.
But progress is never simple, is it? This quote from our source material really gives us something to think about. It suggests that while women have entered all these new roles in politics and the workforce, the fundamental, deep-down structures of inequality often remain totally unchallenged. A woman's identity is still, by and large, determined by marriage and family.
Which brings us to our final question. The women we've talked about today, they didn't just want a seat at the table. They wanted to redesign the whole house. So as we celebrate the incredible progress they made possible, we have to ask ourselves, is just occupying the new spaces they created enough? Or does truly honoring their legacy demand that we continue their work of questioning the very structure of things?